Alright, today we're looking at exchange rates. Example 1. John is migrating to Australia from South Africa. So he's leaving South Africa and heading to Australia. If the exchange rate, okay, so 1 Australian dollar is to 15 Rand 40. What does this mean? That means for every 1 Australian dollar that he has, so for every 1 Australian dollar that John has, he will get 15 Rand 40. If he has 2 Australian dollars, he will get double that amount, which will be 30 Rand 80 cents. The question says, how many dollars would he receive if he has 550,000? So he has 550,000. The question says, how many dollars would he receive? So X means how many dollars would he receive? So remember that exchange rates is direct proportion, and for direct proportion all we do is cross multiply. So we cross multiply, that means we're going to say 1 times 550,000 and X times 15 Rand 40. So 1540 times X will be 15,40X. So 1540 times X will give me 1540X is equal to 1 times 550,000 will be 550,000. Next thing we need to do is divide both sides by 1540 so that we can solve for X. So to find the mysterious amount of Australian dollars, all we have to do is divide both sides by 1540, and so we get X is equal to 550,000 divided by 1540. But there's a quicker way of thinking, and let me show you how. So our method, the quicker way will be to go from 1 Australian dollar to 1540. What do we have to do to go from the number 1 to the number 1540? What should we do? Multiply or divide? So 1 multiplied by 1540 will give me 1540. So all I have to do is take 1 and multiply it by 1540 to get this number. But tell me, which way is he going? Is John going from Australia to South Africa? Or is he going from South Africa to Australia? So that means he's taking rands and he's going to dollars, Australian dollars. So don't you think we're not going this direction? Which direction are we going? Right, so notice he will be dividing by 15,40 because he has rands and he's going to Australia. So now he has 550,000 rands and he's going to Australia. So just by looking at that, we can see going from rands to dollars will be divide. Right, so he's going from rands to dollars. So that means we have to take the 1540 divided by 1540, and that's how we'll find X. Notice we have 550,000 divided by 1540. Right, once we divide it, we punch it into our calculator. Please do not use long division, and we'll get the answer 35,714,285. So why did I write 29? Round off to 2 decimal places. Right, the next question says Amelia is going on holiday to Italy. So she'll have to purchase some euros. How many euros will she get for 375 euros if the exchange rate is £1 equals 1,2769 euros? Let's look at this question. So first we write down the exchange rate, which was given. £1 is equal to 1.2769 euros. And notice the question says how many euros. So notice on this side we have the euros, that side we have the pounds. So how many euros? We don't know. X. Amelia has 375 pounds. So We can cross multiply, that's one way of doing it, or we can just use some reasoning. So to go from 1 pound to 1,2769, what should we do? 1 times 1,2769 will give us 1,2769. So whatever we did on the top, we should also do at the bottom. And so we will multiply the bottom by 1,2769. So we will multiply the bottom by 1,2769. So that will give us, so x is equal to 375 times 1,2769. Multiply that in your calculator, you will get 478.84 euros. Okay, it's as easy as that. Next, we'll be looking at direct and indirect proportion. Alright, the next question is direct proportion, and it says 5 sweets cost 10 rand. So all we have to do is make horizontal columns, horizontal rows and columns coming down. Sweets is our top row and cost is our bottom row. So we know that 5 sweets cost 10 rand. So we fill in our box, 5 sweets cost 10 rand. And they say how many sweets, that will be x, cost 60. And so we fill in our box, how many sweets cost 60. How do we know that this is direct proportion? Direct proportions, 1 sweet cost 10 rand, for example, 2 sweets cost 20 rand, 3 sweets cost 40 rand. So it has some sort of a pattern. The more sweets, the more cost. So for example, if 1 sweet is 10 rand, 2 sweets will be 20 rand, 3 sweets 30 rand, 4 sweets 40 rand, 5 sweets 50 rand. That means from number 1 to number 5, the numbers are moving upwards. You will notice in the bottom row, the numbers are also moving upwards. This is how we recognize a direct proportion. Both rows, for direct proportion, both numbers are moving upwards. For example, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the top row, the sweets. In the bottom row, the cost, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Notice that it is going up, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 rand. So both rows are increasing. This is how we recognize a direct proportion. So for direct proportions, we cross multiply. So we say 10 times x is 10 times x. 5 times 60 is 5 times 60. 5 times 60 is 300 equals 10 times x is 10x. Now we need to solve for x. Divide both sides by 10 because we're interested in 1x. Dividing both sides by 10, we will then get 10 divided by 10 is 1. So x has to be equal to 30. Does an answer of 30 make sense to you? Let's look at the fraction. If we look at the box, notice that x is equal to 30. If we place 30 here, we have 5 over 10. So 5 over 10. 30 over 60. 30 over 60. Simplify the fraction. Do we get half equals half? If this side equals to that side, the answer must be correct. That's a direct proportion. With indirect proportions, if you look at the next question, it says 1 man digs a hole and it takes him 5 hours. So we always keep our categories horizontal. So 1 man takes 5 hours. Question then says, how many hours does it take 5 men? So here, notice we're digging the same hole. That's the secret. We're digging the same hole. So let's use logical reason. If I'm digging one hole and I dig it by myself, it'll take me 5 hours. If I get 100 men, that hole's going to be very quick to dig. So if we have more men digging the hole, that means it's going to take less time. So let's look at what that means. So if we can just go with an assumption. 1 man takes 5 hours. 2 men means less time. 3 men, even less time, 4 men, less time, and 5 men will be even less time. Let's just assume that it goes down in ones. Okay, let's just make an assumption. Alright, so notice 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's assume that if we get more men, it'll take less time. Okay, this is what we have called an indirect proportion. So we call this an indirect proportion. So notice in the top row the numbers are increasing in the top row. The bottom row the numbers are decreasing. This is how we recognize indirect proportions. Top row the numbers are getting bigger. Bottom row numbers are getting smaller. In other words, they're increasing in opposite directions. So for all indirect proportions, all we do, we multiply coming down. But please note that we have to keep our rows horizontally, the men one row and the hours another row. We multiply down. By multiplying down, we have 1 times 5, 1 times 5. Multiply coming down, 5 times x is 5 times x. Then solve for x. Okay, so 1 times 5 is 5, 5 times x is 5x. We're not interested in 5x, we're interested in 1x. So therefore we must divide both sides by 5. Dividing both sides by 5, how much will you get? Correct, you'll get x is equal to 1. I hope this example makes sense.